I just want to tell you a little bit about what's going on in the Near East Side and some things that we can possibly do to positively create change here in Richmond. So I've given you each a folder here, and that kind of goes over what the Bonner Center is and does for our neighbors here in the Near East Side and how we work together. There's a bunch of different programs that we do to work with our neighbors. So I'm going to kind of briefly go through them. I don't want to spend too much time on it. We do a lot of work with our senior population. Not only do we provide housing for our seniors, depending on their income levels, we also have programs run during the day. We want to be able to keep seniors in their living situations for as long as possible. So we also want them to have a vibrant social life. So we give them an opportunity to come to the center, go on field trips, hang out with their friends, get any sort of training on computers or whatever they want to learn about, and that way they can go home at the end of the day and still be able to live in their houses. We also have adult day services for anyone that's 18 and older. That's someone, if someone has special needs and their caretaker needs to go to the doctor or go to work, they can drop them off and have a safe, caring environment for them again, so that way they can take care of them and then come back at the end of the day. So that's the first page here, the purple page, if you're looking in your binder. The next one that I have is the Children and Youth Services. So there's a lot of youngsters on the Near East Side. So we do a lot of after-school programming and summer programming for them as well. So that's this orange sheet. We also have our Financial Foundations Department, which is really working on building capacity of neighbors to help them either with financial planning, getting a bank account, anything that they might need to go further in their careers, any sort of career training classes, English as second language classes, or pharmacy tech training, or whatever their career is interested. We have rotating classes that come through. So we also do a free tax site as well, just to help any neighbors out. So that's all here in the green. The continuum of care housing talks about our housing for families and for seniors, and for people that are coming out of experiencing homelessness. So that gives you a little bit of detail about how that works. And then the thing that we're starting to really focus on is housing stability for school success, which is a really fancy way of saying we want kids to be stable and have stable home lives so that way they can perform well in school. If they're moving from apartment to apartment every couple of months, it's not as beneficial for them, and their grades aren't as not able to focus as much on schooling and their grades. So we've really been focusing on that in our partnership with our neighborhood schools. We also know that physical well-being is really important, so we have a fitness zone, which is the gym for the Near East Side, and it's the cheapest gym membership you can get anywhere in Indy. The most you will ever pay is $20 a month, which is awesome, and then there's sliding scale fees depending on your income as well. So we want everyone to have an opportunity, with a lack of green space, to have a place to go and work out if they're not able to access that. So those are some of the programs that Bonner Center has, just so you guys can be aware of that. But today we're not really necessarily focusing on those specific programs, but more on the community development side of what the Bonner Center does. So my role at the Bonner Center is the community builder, and Tracy actually worked at the Bonner Center, so she is probably more of an expert than me on this because she helped to write this quality of life plan here. And we can pass these around if you guys want. There's 3 of them, and this is the original quality of life plan that was done by the Near East Side in 2007. So it's kind of all just stuck together. It's been about 10 years since that plan was written, and I'm excited to say that 91% of the things in it were successfully completed or taken care of by the neighborhood. So it's a huge success, and there's a lot of really a big dream and big vision ideas that came to light because of this quality of life plan. So I wanted to talk with you guys about what that looks like kind of in the social infrastructure that we're talking about, the kind of development that we do as Near East Side neighbors, and kind of helping envision how we can do that here in Richmond. So this one here is the exact same copy of that. except it shows what things have been accomplished and what things are still being worked on, so you can kind of see what things were successful and what things were not as successful. So yeah. One of the things, I'm not sure how familiar you are with community development, so I don't want to be preaching to the choir too much, but one of the practices that the Bonner Center really focuses on is asset-based community development. How many of you are familiar with that? Some of you? Okay. So asset-based community development is basically, instead of coming into a neighborhood or into an area and saying, this is what needs to be done, or this is what's wrong with the community, we talk to the neighbors, we talk to the organizations, the people that are already doing the work, and say, you know, what do you bring to the table? Because you are an integral part of our community. What things do you have? Is it a physical thing that you own, like a storefront, or maybe it's a skill you have, maybe you're a good craftsman, or maybe you're really good at baking pies and you can sell these for fundraising. So basically going through and trying to find the things that are already within the community that we can build into this sort of plan. So that's something that we really focus on. And so we try to go and start with that and see what is already available in the community and how we can use that then to address needs in the community. So once the neighbors say, well, this is what I am capable of doing, this is what I have, then we discuss, okay, what are things that we see are issues in our community? So when this quality of life plan was done, originally, there was a big, huge summit where all sorts of neighbors gathered together and just kind of had this brainstorming session, and were able to think about, like, well, what areas do we want to focus on as neighbors to work together to combat in our community. And so it kind of got funneled into these 7 categories, which you see here. Things ranging from education to public safety, to affordable housing and development, to economic development. But really trying to work from that place of, this is what we already have skills in, and this is how we can use those connections and those capabilities to work on these issues. So yeah, that's kind of my overview. Tracy, I don't know. Oh, sorry.
So out of the, I'm sorry.
No, yeah, go ahead.
So out of the 20,000 people in the area, how many people participated in that brainstorming session you described?
Just under 350.
Yeah.
Under 350?
Yeah.
So that's a pretty good group.
It's a pretty good group. The city wouldn't print maps unless we promised. We had 300 people and we exceeded that. So.
Yeah. And Tracy helped write the quality of life plan, so she's more of an expert than I am. I've only been working at Bonner Center for about a year, so she can probably run this session.
Oh, so long ago. I will say that after we did the plan, we realized that we completely left off healthcare and mental health care. Mm-hmm. And that is actually a really huge issue, given that the Affordable Care Act kicked in after the plan was enacted, and we were just completely unprepared for that.
Yeah. And so, like Tracy said, that is something that we see as lacking. And so we're actually getting ready right now as an area site to redo our entire quality of life plan again, because it has been 10 years. A lot of things have changed in the neighborhood, and then, like she said, there's been a lot of gaps that we want to fill in. So we're getting ready to redo this whole entire process again, which is always necessary, and usually it takes less than 10 years to get there. But yeah, did you have?
I just had a question, and it might be better for anybody who can answer it. Tell me more about the housing tax increment financing.
So, you may have heard of TIF districts. Mm-hmm. So this was a HOTIF district, where the city designated boundaries and improved. Oh, sure.
It's for
the map of the HOTIF is. I'll just talk really loud. Where the property tax increases that were captured for the area went right back into it. And the local community development corporation, which is now called NEAR, held those dollars, and we could use it for the development of affordable housing and the stuff that it caused. Because there had been vacant lots for so many years that when we built new homes, the city required us to do retention ponds, which, as you can imagine, are not good in the inner city. So we did rain gardens and different ways to capture and not stress the old sewer system in that park. I think it still exists.
Yeah, and they're even expanding it now too.
So I guess my question is, and perhaps other leaders here in the room could answer this, that was put in place by the city.
Yes.
And so the state did not recognize any housing TIF districts, is that correct?
Probably. And I should explain that the Near East Side was part of other neighborhoods in the LISC Ginny Quality of Life planning, and every neighborhood was to have a HOTIF. And then there was a change in mayor. So Mayor Peterson is the one who established it, Mayor Ballard was elected, and they were completely stopped. We were the only community that got it.
Got it.
And I think you can clearly see the impact of that HOTIF when looking at inner city neighborhoods.
I know here locally, we're so close to Ohio, and Ohio as a state has a housing tax increment financing program. I know that as a state of Indiana, we've discussed it. Am I right here? You're shaking your head no, yes? I'm just looking for feedback. We don't have one, right. So I guess my interest is, how does the city, how could we gain insight in how Indianapolis did it? And is that something perhaps that Richmond could duplicate? I'd love to gather more information there if that's possible.
I would suggest contacting the director of the Metropolitan Development Department, Emily Mack. She was with the city when the HOTIF was designed. She's back with the city running DMD. Emily Mack.
How do you spell her last name?
M-A-C-K. She's delightful and smart.
And you could also talk to the director of NEAR that Tracy was talking about. They've been expanding it in recent months. His name is John Hay. And I believe his email is john@nearindy.org.
Joe Bowling at Inglewood Community Development Corporation was also there at the inception of the HOTIF. Inglewood was one of the sponsors of the Quality of Life Plan. You see it on the back of the plan.
What was John's last name again?
Hay, Hay.
That's great information. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. And I can always try to get everyone's emails to send all of this out at the end too, if that'd be helpful. So you can get maybe a digital copy of this to pour through. I know it's a lot to look at. So yeah. But this is supposed to be a conversation, really. So if you guys have any ideas or questions and thinking about, and I know that, Richmond is more of a smaller city, rural, than urban, inner city. So I know that some things don't translate exactly, but a lot of things are still very similar, like size, demographic, with the type of housing stock that is being rehabilitated is very similar on the Near East Side, a lot of really old homes as well. So if you have any questions.
How do we're looking from a community development standpoint, we have a downtown center with perhaps even have some different districts.
Right.
Although I would like to think through collaboration and working together, we're going to kind of tie all these districts together. How your downtown or business district is actually Indianapolis.
Yeah.
How does that impact the development side of what you do?
I think it's interesting because we do have our downtown core, and then we're also trying and working on having specific business type districts or corridors on major streets. So Washington Street in Indianapolis is Highway 40 runs straight through the city, and sorry, I know, I'm making it difficult for you. So that also runs through the city, and it runs through the Near East Side. And Inglewood especially has been working on making that more of a corridor that goes straight into downtown.
10th Street.
And 10th Street as well, exactly. We just actually at our last neighborhood summit proposed a project that we're submitting before Lilly Endowment to turn 10th Street into like an arts and culture corridor, kind of like Mass Ave is or like Broad Ripple is in Indianapolis, to encourage artists and other local businesses to move into that 10th Street corridor. There's already quite a few there, but to really bolster it up and kind of surrounding it by the Rivoli Theater, which is one of the first theaters, motion picture theaters in Indianapolis that has fallen into decay and needs some tender loving care. So yeah, so to answer your question, like it's a little bit of both, that we are trying to stay connected to downtown, and there's been a lot of development on the eastern side of downtown and the western side of the Near East Side, which is split by 6570, the highway. And there's also been a lot of talk about that highway in particular because NDOT is getting ready to redo that highway, and they want to, there's been a coalition of people formed to take down the highway and either put it underground, like in Boston where they capped the freeway, to kind of bring those districts together, or to make it more accessible for neighbors and, you know, improving connectivity. So a little bit of both. I don't know if I answered your question.
No, it did.
Yeah.
It did. Actually, spawned a bunch of other questions.
Yes.
I'm going to take Matt's advice and not take it.
No, you're good. Yeah. Yes.
And I'm not familiar with the whole area, but I think I have a sense of it.
Mm-hmm.
We're in the Star District.
Okay.
The Star District has some wonderful historic homes,
Yeah.
but they're large.
Yes.
And they're currently, a lot of them are apartment,
Mm-hmm.
made up of apartments.
Yeah.
What kind of programs, do you have any programs available that help your neighborhood take those homes and readdress them, rehab them, make them into single homes, again, maybe cottage industry homes with apartment on top, but something functioning so that it's out of the apartment realm into the single ownership realm, that kind of thing, and the rehab programs that might have been where those dollars might have come from.
Yeah, I don't know that we have anything that's like specifically targeted at that, but there have been in the past, like near that organization that's working on housing rehabilitation, they work in a part of the Near East Side called St. Clair Place, and that's where I live. And they've been taking a lot of homes that either used to be flop homes where they had like a bunch of like single room apartments in there, where the landlords weren't very engaged with taking care of their property or, you know, caring for their neighbors. They were just trying to make, you know, quick money off of it. So they've taken ones that were either people were evicted or people were kicked out, they lost their property, not taking directly over, ones that are either blighted, ones that were abandoned, you know, and then transform those into single family homes. I can think of a couple off the top of my head that are on my street that have happened. So they don't like actively go and take over necessarily, but when it falls into disrepair, then they take it and redo it. Right now there's been a couple homes that a new project they're working on called the Educators Village, which is on the eastern boundary of St. Clair Place, where there's about 20 different homes that have been abandoned or blighted, and they've basically turned them over, rehabbed them, and are now trying to market them to teachers to move into, so that way teachers can live in the community that they're serving their students in, instead of having to commute from like Hamilton County or further away in Indianapolis. So I don't know that we have a specific program that is working on that per se, but kind of around that issue. 65% of the Near East Side is renter occupied and only 35% is homeowners. So it is something that we're trying to work more in engaging with renters to help them become better connected with the community. We're having a renters summit in November, the first one ever, to either provide resources and get people connected, but also to again emphasize, like, just because you don't own property in the Near East Side doesn't mean that you're not a valued member of our community. And giving them tools on either, if you're interested in home ownership, here are some tools we can give you, and walking them through that process. Or if you want to be a renter, here's how you can protect your rights. So, yeah.
So I missed the very first part when you were saying they. Who were they again?
Near East Side Area Renewal. So that's one of, so the Bonner Center and the Near East Side, there's a lot of partnerships. And so before the Quality of Life Plan, there were a lot of people that were kind of working together, but the Near East Side really solidified that culture of partnership, I would say. I don't know if Tracy can speak a little bit to that about.
It's been in place for like 40 years.
Yeah, it's, yeah.
That kind of cohesive, we have an attitude that rising tides lift all boats. There was a community development corporation before here that was really well known, and when it tanked, there was a lot of stress economically. Eastside Community Investments, maybe you've heard of it, but, and there was a really strong community organizing effort also in the community that about the same time also tanked. So I think that's what hurt the partnerships, but the culture, it's been in place a long time.
Yeah. And there's still outliers in different like community development organizations or nonprofits that aren't as connected, and we're always trying to bring them into this culture. And a lot of people just work in silos. They have a very specific, donor base or group that they're trying to reach, and they're very, laser focused on that mission. But we're really trying to bring everyone together, because if somebody's doing something over here that we're doing over here, we might as well work together to make it impact more people instead of duplicating the process. So
So from the, and I'll be like Josh, I won't.
No, you're good.
Totally control the conversation, but a couple more questions. With regards to the rehabbing of those homes back into single home dwellings, what kind of funding mechanisms help with that? Do you have any idea that were targeted to do just that very thing?
I can't speak exactly because I can't know everything. I'm on the board of NEAR as well, but I'm still pretty new there too, so I'm learning a lot. But I know they get funding from INHP, which is, I always mess this up, Indianapolis Neighborhood Housing Partnership. Yeah, I was like, what is it? They get funding, I think, from the city as well to help. And then there's a couple other, like,
LISC?
I think LISC gives them a few things, but not as much. Yeah.
Doesn't do a lot of housing. There was federal funding in place at that time during the legacy project that no longer exists.
Yeah.
NSP dollars, there was a lot.
Mm-hmm.
There was a partnership with the MIBOR, which is the Realtor Association. That doesn't exist anymore. So that was enabled them to do a big chunk of homes right away.
And something they've started doing recently, as housing prices have started to go up in the western part of the Near East Side, is they've started picking select properties to sell at market rate values, so that will help then give extra funds to develop low-income housing or affordable housing.
And then one last question. With all of the apartments and those kinds of things and transitioning that area, how did enforcement, code enforcement, for those that might have been slum landlords, etc. How was that fiercely used to help either eradicate or rectify those that were slum landlords and provided those residents?
Yeah.
No? Is that something that you would like to see happen?
Yeah, I think there are some properties and there are some landlords that take advantage of renters for sure. And that's something that they've been trying to work on, is how to approach that and to, again, try to see people that are working in the system as an asset and trying to maybe take their viewpoint and help them, correct it to what is more beneficial for the neighborhood. It's a little bit more gentler than that, so I'm not sure. I would recommend emailing John and asking specifically about that, because I know that is something that they're interested in kind of doing.
It happens in Indianapolis, just not in the poor neighborhoods, and that's
Yeah.
what's so frustrating.
Yeah.
Some neighborhood associations, to knowing how hard it is, will develop like a dirty dozen. It's their top 12 worst properties. They'll report the violations every single month.
Yep.
And they will tell code enforcement, look, we've been reporting this property for 3 years.
Yeah.
There's also some enforcement by our health department and some by the city, so
There could be more.
there could be
Yeah.
way more.
Yeah.
It's also, I don't want to make an assumption here, but a lot of this began, if I'm not mistaken, and this is for both of you, with the initial investment through the Super Bowl bid.
And, right. A lot of attention came then.
Yeah.
And just so you know, because there's a myth about this, the NFL gave us $1 million to build the youth education town, which is the gym she mentioned. That was
At the
actually-
Bonner Center.
It's actually on the campus of Arsenal.
Arsenal
High
Center.
School.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was actually my job to build that. It's $1 million. That is it. Y'all didn't give us anything else.
Yeah.
We didn't do anything else. That's it.
Yeah.
And that building was a $12 million project, for which the NFL gave us $1 million.
Yeah.
We raised the rest. We raised the money for the housing. We raised the money for the infrastructure. So people think that we just got buckets of cash dumped on us.
Yeah.
We got invited to some fancy parties.
You get a percentage of the Super
We
Bowl.
did not.
Yeah. And another thing that's unique to the Near East Side as well is that we have a federal designation for the Promise Zone as well, which is the only one in Indianapolis, and there's only 2 in the state. The other one's in Evansville. And so again, that's another misconception, is that because you have federal Promise Zone designation that you get all this money from the federal government. Well, the designation comes with $0. It just comes with preference points on grant applications for federal grants. So we have a really strong grants department at the Bonner Center, which allows us to go after those grants. And having the Promise Zone designation again, we don't get any direct money from the government for that. But when we apply for grants or apply for different other grants, like local grants or things in Indianapolis, people see that and are like, oh, okay, this is something that's been vouched for basically by the government too. So while we're talking about correcting things, yeah. Yes.
One of the things Matt mentioned is that Richmond wants to focus an initiative on investing in people.
Yes.
And I wondered how you guys track, particularly some of the youth programs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you talked about the initiative about moving from housing to housing, and housing stabilization.
Yeah.
Are you able to track kids as they go through school over a number of years and see if they go on to higher education? And
so that's something we've started doing recently, very much so. We've always been very good partners and collaborating with our Near East Side schools. There was a neighborhood school called School 15, Thomas Gregg, and basically it was a failing school and was going to get taken over by IPS, basically just and completely shut down or redone. But they came to the neighborhood first and said, what do you want to see done with this school? And the neighborhood rallied together and was like, we're going to turn this into Near East Side Innovation School, which is not quite a charter school. It still has IPS testing, busing by IPS, like certain things. But they have their own board and it's run all by neighbors. And so there's a little bit more accountability now with that. And we're trying to expand that even to schools that are in the Near East Side, that accountability. So we're trying to work on the elementary school first, Thomas Gregg, and then working on having good partnerships with them, you know, tracking like family stability and grades and how we can better support them. Bonner Center is like the support center. We have staff that are actually on site at that school as community connectors to help bridge the gap between services and people. And so once we have that, in a few years we're going to go to Harshman Middle School and then to Arsenal Tech High School. So we're working our way up through the system to help keep track of students and make sure they're succeeding. Yeah. We try to be very data driven, and that's something that, you know, is really like awesome now, is that a lot of people are behind that, and so we're trying to continue that going forward. So yeah. Any other thoughts? I feel like we should probably get like, I don't know how much time we have left, probably like only 5 minutes, but it'd be probably good to like break into smaller groups and kind of talk about ways in which you think some of the information that's been presented might be beneficial here in Richmond, kind of to pick each other's brains. I'm not sure how much time we have to do that the rest of the day, but I don't know if you guys want to get in groups of like 5 or 6 each and kind of talk for a little bit to see if there's anything. I don't know if it'd be beneficial. If not, we can just keep sharing as we are.